If I could be in the doctor's office of every single one of my patients, the moment that they were diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, there are five things that I would want to tell them. And honestly, I feel like knowing these five things would have probably saved them years of frustration, overwhelm, and suffering. So, if you are a woman newly diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, or even have spent years struggling with this disease, this video is for you. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Rochelle Vong, a naturopathic doctor in Toronto, and I have spent over a decade helping women with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's restore their energy, lose weight effortlessly, and feel like themselves again without the use of overly restrictive diets. Receiving a diagnosis of hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's can feel very scary, especially when doctors are not spending enough time explaining what it even means to have hypothyroidism. And the only thing that my patients are told when they're first diagnosed is that they will have to be on a thyroid medication for the rest of their lives. That's it. Personally, that would drive me crazy. The amount of Googling and researching that my patients have had to do on their own is insane. Why are we needing to resort to the internet or social media to learn more about our health when our healthcare practitioners should be, honestly, the ones to educate us on what is happening in our bodies? And more importantly, they should be telling us what to do to start feeling better. Yet, this is not our reality. My team and I work with hundreds of women worldwide, from North America to the UK to New Zealand. And honestly, it's the same experience worldwide. So, to save you years of frustration, overwhelm, and struggle, I want to share with you the five things that I wish every patient of mine knew when they were first diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So, the first one is that Hashimoto's thyroiditis is not a thyroid problem. It is an immune system problem. And Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease that affects the thyroid. And for those of you who have never been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, then you need to know that over 90% of people with hypothyroidism actually have Hashimoto's. So if you've never been checked for it, this is an absolute must and should be the first thing on your to-do list. Now, what you're looking for in blood work is the presence of two specific antibodies called antithyroid globulin, or anti-TG for short, and antithyroid peroxidase, or anti-TPO for short. Now, most doctors, I find, don't care to test for these antibodies, or they likely will never test for it again, even if you've had it done once. And that's because it does not change their treatment. Having hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's is basically the exact same thing for them. You're still going to be prescribed thyroid medication like Synthroid or levothyroxine, or nothing at all, depending on the case. But for functional practitioners like myself, it makes all the difference. Because if you have an autoimmune disease, it means that my entire focus of treatment is actually not going to be on the thyroid, which is what conventional medicine focuses on. Instead, I will want to focus on your immune system and everything that affects it, because this is what actually will move the needle and bring your antibodies down. Now, the second thing that I wish every patient of mine knew when they were first diagnosed is that Hashimoto's is a progressive disease, meaning it can get worse. So there are actually 4 stages of Hashimoto's, and most people are diagnosed in around stages 3 and 4, where they already have full-blown hypothyroidism. But most of the time, it doesn't start that way. In stage 1 of Hashimoto's, you have a slight elevation in your thyroid antibodies, but no damage to your thyroid tissue as of yet that is going to compromise its thyroid function. So on blood work, your thyroid hormones are going to look normal. Stage 2 Hashimoto's is when your thyroid antibodies continue to go up, which means that your immune system is continuing to be dysregulated. And now there's more inflammation present, but not enough damage where you will see changes in your thyroid hormones. So technically, your TSH, T4, and T3 could still look normal on blood work. Now, stage 3 is when your Hashimoto's has progressed quite a bit to a state where there is a moderate amount of thyroid damage that is compromising its function. At this point, we start to see changes in your thyroid hormone levels. So TSH starts to creep up, T4 and T3 start to go down. We actually call this state subclinical hypothyroidism. So you might have heard that term being thrown around, or you might have been given this diagnosis yourself. But there's not much that conventional practitioners do at this point. Now, the last stage, which is stage 4, is where there is now significant thyroid damage. And it's to a point where you now have full-blown hypothyroidism. So your TSH has gone up quite a bit, and now your T4 and T3 levels are low. This is when most cases of Hashimoto's are diagnosed. And this is also when doctors will prescribe thyroid medication. Now, in some cases, if you have a really good proactive doctor, you'll have your antibodies tested quite frequently. Maybe you have a family history. And some people will discover their Hashimoto's in the earlier stages when their antibodies are elevated, but their thyroid hormones are still normal. This is a crucial point in time. And I really want to emphasize this because so many of you are in this boat. This is the time when you have so much potential to reverse this process of autoimmunity and prevent the development of hypothyroidism. Unfortunately, this is also when I see so many women get the least amount of support from their conventional practitioners. Because often when you're diagnosed with this, you're told, well, your levels are fine, your antibodies are a little bit high, but your thyroid hormone levels are normal. So what we have to do is just watch and wait until your thyroid dies, at which point we can prescribe you medication. I think some of you might be nodding your head right now because I hear this so often, and I have so many issues with this statement, which is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to create this video in the first place, because I need you to know that this advice is why so many people are struggling with thyroid issues right now. You don't need to wait. Instead, you need to ditch this advice, like just throw it in the garbage, and be proactive with your health. Do something, act now. Honestly, anything that you can do to start reversing this process right now. Okay, this ties perfectly into the third thing that I wish every patient of mine knew when they were first diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, and it's that you can decrease your thyroid antibodies naturally. I have heard from so many of my patients that they've had conversations with their GPs and even their endocrinologists where they've been told that thyroid antibodies don't come back down and that there is absolutely nothing that they can do to help. Nothing with their diet, no change in lifestyle, no supplements can help to bring their antibodies down. But I can tell you from the hundreds of women that I have worked with and treated with Hashimoto's that this is completely false. You can absolutely decrease your thyroid antibodies, and it doesn't really have to involve this long, hard, complicated protocol. It comes down to understanding the root cause, or what I like to call the driving force behind your autoimmunity. And that can look very different between individuals. And which is why it's so important that you get a very personalized deep dive into what is going on in your body before you start any thyroid protocol. I will even go on to say that remission is possible. I've had several patients who've been able to get their antibodies all the way back down to normal range or really close to it. And I mean, this isn't always possible, but for some, it is. So don't lose hope. Keep trying. Keep doing the things that are going to uncover more answers for you because there is so much potential for you to feel better. Now, the fourth thing that I wish every patient of mine knew when they're first diagnosed is that, contrary to what your doctor might have said to you at some point, taking thyroid medication alone is not going to completely heal your thyroid. And I'm not saying that I'm against thyroid medication or that taking thyroid medication is a bad thing. In fact, I actually think thyroid medications can be absolutely necessary and life-changing for some people. But to say that it's the only thing that you should be doing is where I have an issue. At the end of the day, for most of you, There is an underlying reason why you have hypothyroidism in the first place. It's not like you just woke up one day and your thyroid decided not to work. And replacing what is deficient, which in this case is your thyroid hormones, is important and can really help to bring about symptom improvement. But then ignoring or overlooking what is causing that deficiency in the first place is going to keep you stuck where you are. For example, most people with hypothyroidism have Hashimoto's. So their immune system is dysregulated. They're creating these thyroid antibodies that are slowly attacking and damaging the thyroid tissue, which then over time compromises its ability to produce these thyroid hormones. So the focus here isn't just replacing the thyroid hormones, as important as that is. Really, what we should be doing is regulating that immune system so that the assault on your thyroid slows down. That is what moves the needle and produces long-term results. Okay, now the last thing that I wish every patient of mine knew when they were first diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's is that you should be checking all of your thyroid markers every 3 to 6 months and not just TSH. When you're beginning this thyroid healing journey, you want to know what's working and what's not. And so it's important to be on top of your thyroid health so that you can be proactive and you can also pivot when necessary. But the only way to do that is by monitoring your thyroid labs regularly. Now, most conventional doctors will only check TSH, which stands for thyroid stimulating hormone, which is a hormone that comes from the brain and is sent to the thyroid to produce thyroid hormones. However, as you can see, it's just one piece of the puzzle. We're missing all the other components. So, how will we actually know what's happening in the thyroid if we don't have all the pieces to see that full picture? There are 6 tests that actually make up a full thyroid panel for someone with Hashimoto's. So, those 6 tests are TSH, free T4, free T3, antithyroid globulin, anti-TPO, and reverse T3. Ideally, these tests should be repeated every 3 to 6 months. So if you're finding that you're getting some pushback or resistance from your doctor, I would either find another doctor or source these tests privately. Because at the end of the day, you can't change what you don't measure. And I've put together a free resource for you that will actually provide you with a full list of blood tests that I typically run for all of my patients with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, because it's really important that we look at the bigger picture when we are looking at Hashimoto's and not just focus on the thyroid. So if you want that resource, I put a link to it in the description below, and it'll be sent to you in your inbox. And you can take that with you to the lab, to your doctor, to ask for the right tests. So there you have it. These are the 5 things that I wish every single patient of mine knew when they were first diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So whether you are newly diagnosed or you've been struggling with this for 20 plus years, I want you to use this information and please be proactive. It's never too late to make a change. It's never too late to better your health. And the sooner you take action, the sooner you can get your life back. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel to learn more about what you can do to heal your thyroid and start feeling better. I would also love to hear from you. So if there are any topics that you want me to talk about or cover in future videos, please leave it in the comments below. All right, I'll see you in the next video.